So I wanted to drop by today and talk to you guys about something that happened to me earlier. It's been a crazy week. Today was a good one. So I had a closing today that was a for sale by owner, and I want to talk to you a little bit about why that can get hairy and why that might be a decision that you need to really put some thought into. I'll give you an example. First of all, most of the time, people that sell for sale by owner might not realize the time commitment that's involved in scheduling appointments and showing up for inspections, and like getting it under contract is just the beginning. That's the easy part. It's contract to close that can really take up your time as an owner if you're doing for sale by owner. Secondly, you're kind of going into things maybe a little bit blind. It could be that you've sold 7 or 8 houses for sale by owner and never had a problem, but one day you might, and you might not really have anywhere to turn. I'll talk to you about what happened to a friend of mine today. So I had a friend contact me a couple months ago. She was super excited, wanted to buy a house. We start looking, and she finds a for sale by owner that she falls in love with immediately, just falls in love with it. So the first thing I did before I even showed her the property was contact the seller and ask them if they would pay my commission. Because in the state of North Carolina, sellers typically pay commission. So he fought me a little bit on that, but he agreed to do it, and I went and showed her the property. She loved it from the minute she walked in. This is perfect. This is the place I want to be, and I've known her forever, so she was uber excited, and it was all over her face. That's when you know, when you walk in the door, that's the one, right? So this was her one, which was awesome. We start negotiating price, and the seller continues to tell me about how much money he's put into it, about all the things that he's had done, and where he stands with the property. That's not something that you really want to disclose to a buyer, because you're telling me, you're volunteering information to me that I really could use against you in the long run. So there's really no discretion. And because I was negotiating directly with him, that was a situation where he might have told his listing agent all of that, but she's not going to, or he isn't going to tell me that, because they don't want me to have any kind of advantage. So before we go any further in this, let me just explain one thing to you. In North Carolina, real estate has agency. And what that means is there's a person that represents both parties in the transaction legally. So there's buyer's agents and there's listing agents. And the listing agents, of course, represent the seller, and the buyer agents represent the buyer. I was representing my friend, the buyer. I'm under contract with her. I actually have a buyer's agency agreement in the state of North Carolina, is a contract. And in that contract, I'm giving her what they call my fiduciary duty, which is basically a big legal term for everything that I do from that point the contract is signed forward is in her best interest. I have to do, by law, what is best for my client. No questions asked, right? Of course, all the decisions come from her, but my job is to advise her on what I feel like, as a professional, the best course of action for her moving forward is. As a seller, you should have a listing agent. They have a contract with you that's the exact same thing, except for you. That listing agent's job is to do what's best for you in negotiations and scheduling and anything that you need. They are to help you and advise you so that you as the seller can make the absolute best decision for you. Get the most money for your property, or if money's not an issue, get the fastest close date for the property, whatever it is. They're supposed to be for you 100% of the time, just like I was for my friend 100% of the time. All right, having said that, we make an offer on the property, we go back and forth in negotiations, and the contract gets accepted. Sent the contract off, get it signed, everything, send it to the attorney, send it to the lender. The appraisal's done. Well, the appraisal came back fine, and I knew it would. He didn't know it would, but I did, and here's why. From a listing agent standpoint, when you list a property, you're going to research all the comps in the area. You're going to find out what's under contract. You're going to find out what was on the market that didn't sell, and probably call that agent and find out why it didn't sell. Maybe they can give you some insight since it's already off the market. You're going to ask questions. You're going to know the neighborhood. As a buyer's agent, if I have a buyer that's interested in a property, I'm going to do those same things for that neighborhood. I went into this transaction basically knowing more about his property than he did, because he didn't have anybody doing all that research for him. But I was doing it for my client because that's my job. So we negotiated a price. The appraisal came back. The appraisal was good. We had the home inspection, which of course the seller had to take off work to come let somebody in the house and stay there the whole time with the inspector, Probably wouldn't have had to done that if they had a list agent. We had the inspection done, and I sent the inspection to the seller so that they could take a look at it. They immediately called workers and started fixing things. Well, I didn't ask them to do that, and my buyer didn't ask them to do that. We had not drawn up a form to ask them to fix anything. And in the state of North Carolina, he doesn't have to fix anything. It's in the contract. It's as is. Now, there may be repercussions for not fixing it. There might be some things on that list that are deal breakers for my client, and if he doesn't fix it, she's backing out, right? But he doesn't know that, and he doesn't have a list agent representing him saying, whoa, 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 hold up. Don't jump into this. We don't even know what she wants yet. Let's wait. Let's wait and see what her buyer's agent asks for. Because, of course, I'm the buyer's agent. I'm going to know what a deal breaker is. He's not. He immediately goes ahead and starts fixing things. Well, turns out my buyer had to move out of her current home 10 days before she closed on this house. Well, we asked if we could move in early, and he agreed. No questions asked. Awesome. That's awesome for my buyer. And this seller's, did a very nice thing. As a listing agent, I might have asked for some compensation for that. I might have said to him, listen, there's a form you can fill out that limits your liability. I think it's fine for you to do that. But I think you ought to go into it, ask for some rent for those 10 days. Just see what they say. See what you can get. He didn't do that. We moved in. Well, they moved in. I live here. But so she moved in, and we were set to close today. Yesterday, there was a major repair that came up. It might be even major than we think. We won't know the full extent until tomorrow, and we closed today. But yesterday, the repair came up. I contacted the seller, let them know about the repair, and I didn't even ask for anything. And they immediately send a plumber over, find out how much it's going to cost to, get it fixed. They've already got it scheduled. If it turns out to be more than what the plumber quoted them, well, they didn't say they were going to spend a certain amount of money on the repair. They just said they were going to fix it. So now they're on the hook. If it's $300 or $3,000, they agreed to fix it. So now they're on the hook for that repair. Well, in the state of North Carolina, they didn't have to do that. But they didn't negotiate with me at all. They didn't ask me any questions. They just sent somebody over. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, that sounds like a really nice seller. What a great guy. How awful are you for letting that happen? How awful would I be if I went back to my client and said, listen, they were going to send a plumber over. I don't think that's right. I told him to hold off. My client's going to look at me and say, I have a contract with you saying that you have to do what's in my best interest. And if this person wants to come fix this repair and not talk to us about negotiations, why are you stopping them? Who do you represent? Well, I represent the buyer. So I can't do that. I can't advise that seller what they should or shouldn't do because I would be breaking the contract with my buyer. I would be doing her wrong if I were to go and advise the seller what they should be doing. I would be being wrong to her rather than representing her the way I should. So he comes to closing today, very nice, but complaining a lot about how much money he's put in this for repairs and how arduous and hard this whole thing has been and how difficult this whole home selling experience has been and all of these things. And I can't help him. I can't help him because I don't work for him. I work for my buyer. And while I appreciate all the things that he did for my buyer, which is great because it's her first home, while I appreciate all of these things, in all honesty, he would have probably spent less money on the commission for a seller's agent than he spent on doing things that he might not have needed to do, or not collecting things and not being paid for things that he might should have been paid to do. Not to mention the time he took off of work, the 100 emails that we corresponded with back and forth that he wouldn't have had to do, the phone calls at 8 o'clock in the morning, the neighbors calling, wondering what's going on, dealing with the homeowners association, having to answer questions from people that he might not even know who they are. So I know that some for sale by owners think, well, I don't trust real estate agents. They're all in it for the money. Of course we're in it for the money. It's our job. But more importantly, I want to sell my friend her next house too. And so I need to do a good job for her. Just like if I was his listing agent, I would want to be selling him the house he's buying. So I need to do a good job. It's not about getting as much money as I can. It's about doing the best job I can for the person I represent. And in this case, I represented my friend. So if you're thinking about doing a for sale by owner, my honest advice to you would be think long and hard about it. Interview several agents. If you walk into a transaction automatically not trusting an agent, find another agent. Interview a bunch of them till you find somebody that you click with. But know that when you do this, this is what people do for a living, and we're educated and we're professional, and we have to take classes all the time to stay up on the laws. We have to know, for instance, about the highway that's coming 100 feet from this man's property that he failed to disclose to us. Ended up not being a problem because I knew about it. I disclosed it to my buyer because it was in her best interest. But if another agent had come in and not known about that highway, and they had gone under contract and sold that house before construction started, there's no telling how much money they could have sued that seller for not disclosing that highway was coming when he knew it. His listing agent would have never allowed that to happen. They would have had to disclose it by law. So think long about it, think hard about it. If you have further questions about for sale by owners, please don't hesitate to give me a call, 336-937-2891.